You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. You can't learn to fly just from a book. You learn from other pilots who know the tools, the skills, and the territory. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, episode number 98, Sales and Marketing First Impressions. So I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help you ladies and gentlemen out there sell more products and services in the aviation world.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions or comments about this episode, as always, you can use the hashtag AvGeekMarketing, and we will find them and reply to every tweet or message that we find. Otherwise, of course, you can put comments on our YouTube channel or our blog, and either way, we do check those pretty frequently, so we'll get it and answer it. So, about first impressions, three big ideas. The first one is that the cliche is true, right?
Absolutely, whether you like it or whether you don't.
First impressions are incredibly important, especially in any kind of a high-end or high-stress or high-risk situation, right?
Right. And high cost.
Yeah, exactly. So second big idea is that first impressions are a really high priority to invest resources. And of course, we're going to go into detail about some of the ways that you can improve your customers' first impressions of your business in lots of different ways, whether they see you in person or whether they see you online first. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is that, visual elements are the most important. So, if you have, and we all have to prioritize, right? We can't make everything perfect all the time, right?
Well, we haven't figured it out.
We try really hard, but, we understand it's really hard to make everything exactly the way you want it. But if you have to focus on something, we'll talk about how to prioritize, and prioritizing visual elements is usually the most important.
Even Apple can't do it right all the time.
Exactly, but they do pretty darn good.
Yes, they do.
Okay, so let's start with the tooth story. You want to tell the tooth story?
Well, no. Since it's my teeth, you can tell it.
Okay, well, it is your teeth, so I didn't know what all you wanted to disclose, but John had a situation with a tooth where we were referred to another doctor, actually, and this was somebody that we had never seen before. It was somebody that was recommended to us by our regular dentist, which is cool, but it was kind of a high anxiety situation because they wanted to do some funky things to John's tooth, right?
Yep.
And so, we go in there, it's kind of a high-stress situation because you don't really know what you're getting into. A dentist is a really high-stress situation because, you're going to be sitting there in a chair with your mouth open with somebody's hands in your mouth. And you're probably going to be also paying this person a lot of money. So, there's possibly a potentially high dollar amount involved, and also a potential of pain and suffering.
And let's just talk about the high dollar amount to start with.
Right.
Every year I review with interest the possibility of getting dental insurance. Mm-hmm. And every year the answer is the same. I'll pay for a family about $250 to $300 depending on where and how. But they will not pay until the third year is the maximum year. You have to be within 3 years, and then they will pay 40% to 60% of what I had done. Well, by the time I had paid all that out, I would have paid almost 3 times what if I just did nothing and just wrote a check for it, which is what I did.
Exactly. So we just pay for cleanings and pay for other things
as
they come up, because we usually don't have anything come up, but every once in a while there's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you pay the now or you pay later.
Right. So how is this related to aviation? Well, number one, there's a high dollar amount. Number two, it's a high risk situation, potentially. This is your head that we're talking about, And thing number three is that it is potentially a high stress situation. So, a lot of people get kind of antsy about traveling. So, in a lot of ways, this is the same. A lot of the things that we're going to be talking about in this story are the same as they would be for a charter travel situation or anything else where you're putting your life in somebody's hands and potentially paying them a lot of money, right?
Is this a picture of the office?
No, this is not a picture of the office. This is as close as I could get.
Oh, okay.
I didn't take pictures in the lobby, but what you're seeing if you're looking at this is a picture of a very nice lobby of an office building. And this could be, this is very close to what this doctor's office
Yeah, I mean,
lobby
it
looks like.
looked very much like this, and it was on the second floor, windows looking out over, mountains and so on and so forth, and very nice.
Exactly. Nice paintings on the wall, bookcases, chandeliers, wood floors, all of those things. So the reason that I'm showing this picture is because, a couple of things happened when we first showed up in this office, none of which made us feel any better about the situation. The first one was that they had some of the information wrong on John's file, which made us wonder, are they going to be yanking the wrong tooth or what are we looking at?
Well, I knew that wasn't going to happen, but
well,
still.
yeah, but still, it doesn't make you feel any more comfortable when things aren't going quite your way. And this happens a lot in business, that somebody gets things not quite polished and it's, not quite perfect, and then people's anxiety level just goes through the roof. But the reason we didn't walk out when things started to go sideways was because the office and the lobby was so nice, and honestly, if you think about it, we're thinking, okay, this dentist has to be doing okay. He's got to be, at least has the appearance of having invested a lot of money, about caring about his customers. The people at the front desk were very professional, even though there was a mistake that was made. They were very upfront about it and very professional about it. So, all of those things really made this first impression a lot better than it could have been, because if we had walked into a place where there were card tables and a cement floor and hand-drawn posters and things like that, and this
we would have walked out.
We would have walked out. Exactly. So a lot of people think, well, this is the last place I want to spend money. I want to spend all of the money on aircraft maintenance. I want to spend all the money on safety. I want to spend all the money on the things that are important to me as the flight director or as the CEO or whatever. But honestly, even coming from us, and I mean, John is probably the most practical person I know, but still, when you think about it, he was actually kind of reassured by the nice office, weren't you? Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously when we talked about it later, right?
Yeah, but the thing that really, well, there was, after we got past the errors up front, there were a number of things that reinforced the fact that this was a good place to be.
Right, exactly. The people were dressed really nicely. They were very professional, very caring. They did their best to straighten out the situation. And you told me afterwards that this was the best dentist office visit you'd ever had, right?
Yeah, because I didn't overshadow it with what happened when we first got there. Mm-hmm. But I have been to dentists in several states at various times throughout my life, and this had been the best experience I've ever had. Not just you might say that was a nit up front, but everything else, from the doctor just imbued you with knowledge,
Yep.
information, confidence, and gives you all these choices up front, and if you do this, this is what's going to happen. If you do that, and so on. And even when he got to work, his assistant, I mean, I've seen assistants for various doctors do pretty good, but this one was so far ahead of the doctor. She said, "Oh, you need," and she'd name off the number for two. I said, "Right," and he'd say, "Right," like one time she missed it, and he said, "No, I want this other one." I said, "Okay," and she got it for him, But she knew every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually pretty amazing. And on top of that, it's the first time I've been to a dentist where there was actually zero. Well, pain aside from being injected, a little pinch.
Owie.
But aside from that, there was no pain.
Right, exactly. And, it's really kind of a pleasure to do business with folks that like each other and that like working together. And, this was obviously a team of people that had been together for a long time, and they, looked out for each other and took really good care of each other as well. So that made us feel really well taken care of with John being a patient. They were really nice to me and, everything else. So altogether a really good experience, but it could have gone badly. And, in your business, I'm sure this happens all the time, where you always pray that the mistake is not the first thing that happens, right?
Right.
You hope that is after you've built some kind of credibility with people before you make your first mistake.
Well, everybody, people are people, and being human, mistakes are possible.
Exactly. But you buy yourself some time, and you buy yourself some goodwill by making a really good visual first impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why is this? We got to thinking about this, and I read a book not too long ago, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, and he talks about this a lot. There's system 1 and system 2, right? System 1 is the gut reaction. System 2 is the more analytical response. System 1, which is the gut reaction, we spend almost all of our time operating from system 1. And the reason is because a lot of things happen in our lives that we really don't have time to analyze every stinking little thing that happens. We just act based on fast thinking, right?
Well, and you know what? That's interesting, because there was a time in my life when I was looking for a job, and I started looking in, March, April, May.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get a job until the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up interviewing at least 8 companies per day.
Mm.
And I got good enough that I could walk in, and before a minute was up, I would know whether it's worth wasting my time to go ahead and talk to this person or not. And sometimes I didn't, and they would look at me this funny and said, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to waste my time because you're going to turn me down. And she said, "Well, why do you say that?" And I said, "It's a feeling I got." I said, "I do this. It's a profession right now."
Looking for a job has become my profession. Yeah, that's
and it's every once in a while I get fooled, but the longer I did it, and I had to keep going because I had a family, and my reserves were running thin by the time I found a job.
Yeah.
But
you got really good at it, and so you were processing a lot of information that maybe you couldn't even articulate if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, you're right, and some of it just reading people. It's like in some cases I would tell the ladies that, well, you've already actually chosen somebody, and right now you're doing the legal thing so that it looks like you had all these people.
Enough applicants to make this legitimate, right?
And in that case, I did that. She looked at me, her mouth was open, and she started to say, "How did you know?" And she didn't do that. She got a part of the word "how" out, and I said, "See ya," and turned around and walked out.
Yeah, exactly. And, when you watch, like, the Sherlock Holmes movies and the TV shows, they do a pretty good job of this. They slow the camera way down.
Yeah, well, I'm not as good as he is.
Well, it's the same thing, though. They slow the visuals way down, and they show you what he's thinking in a split second. All of the details that he's taking in about the dog hair on the guy's pants that show that he has a white dog, and this matches the fact that this other person who is a suspect in this other crime has a white dog, and, all of these little factors that you process really, really quickly. But the thing that your system 1 does, and you act out of your system 1 almost all of the time, unless it hits the speed bump, something isn't right. And then you launch into system 2, and then you start the analytical part of your brain going, why is something not right? And that's what you don't want to do when you're working with prospects and you're working with very new customers. You want them to see everything as a very coherent story. You want to inspire confidence. You want to make everything consistent with your primary story. Mm-hmm. And the way that you do that is you arrange a lot of the visual details, and Disney is fantastic at this. Arrange all of the visual details to match the story that you're talking about. And if you think about the way that Disney does this, they arrange an entire scene so that, if you are in Tomorrowland, everything is futuristic and the fonts on all the signs change and the color of the street changes and everything changes, just to match that coherent story that is going on in your head, right? So think like that, and it will help you. The way that you do this, if you are visiting someone else and you are a salesperson, of course, this is a fairly well-known graphic that's all over the internet, of things that you can do. And, people might say, well, this is just surface stuff. But quite frankly, if you don't get past the surface stuff, you never get anywhere. Anyway. Yeah. Right, exactly. So, a nice haircut, clean-shaven, warm smile, full of confidence, formal dress, dressing maybe just a little bit nicer than the people that you're meeting with.
And what's interesting is that I'm going to be judgmental here and say the millennials, a lot of them don't. Mm-hmm. They have this attitude, well, why should I have to get dressed up to go get a job? Mm-hmm. Well, this is the answer. Mm-hmm. We are human, whether you like it or not, and we do have first impressions. All of us do, whether we espouse them or not, or admit to them, that happens.
Yeah. Well, in defense of millennials, we've got some of them as clients who dress better than anybody else, right?
That's true, actually.
And, and it works for them, because it's kind of unexpected.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
And, well, they didn't expect that, but it does.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay, so that's first impressions, kind of in person. First impressions, if you're working on the web, the very best resource for that is Dr. Jacob Nielsen's Designing Web Usability. We use this book to create our 31-point checklist that we go through websites whenever we're analyzing a website for a client. We have a checklist that we use to talk about all of these things, to say, here are the things that people expect on a website, and some of the things that work and some of the things that don't. Mm-hmm. And, once again, you don't want to throw any speed bumps in the way and have people go, oh, this is a fly-by-night organization. They've got a card table in their lobby or the digital equivalent of a card table in their lobby, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, those are the two resources that we use all the time. And when we do a website refresh or something like that, we want to use those industry standards and, that science-based, those science-based ideas to decide what goes where, and not just say, I like this better, but this is what tests best among people visiting websites. And he's done a ton of research and a ton of statistics, and he's like this, I don't even remember what his PhD is in, but some kind of statistical math, and he uses that to the hilt. But he actually is a pretty good writer too, so you can actually read his books and almost get it, right? Cool. All right, so I want to give a shout out to XSpec Aviation in this particular podcast, because they have done a phenomenal job of this, right? Mm-hmm. As far as updating their website so that it gives a much better first impression. And also, we met with these guys, and it's a family business. It's Aaron Hill and his father, and we met with them and talked about video conferencing. If you're selling a multi-$1,000 product and people meet you on a video conference, what do you want to look like? And so these guys dress to the nines. They look really nice, incredibly professional, online presence, and everything else. So, they've really taken this advice and run with it, and it's working for them. They've made a lot more sales just in the couple of weeks that we've been talking about this, and they really applied it and made it work for them. So I just wanted to give them a lot of kudos for this, because they are the masters of the first impression, right?
Oh, they are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about things that you can invest in. So in the real world, how do customers see you first? And so there's different kinds of businesses. Some kinds of businesses, people walk in and see you for the first time. Some kinds of businesses, and I would say probably 80% nowadays, will see you on the web or call you on the phone first. So unless they happen to be on the field and walk into your establishment, like an FBO or something like that, then you may fall in the first column. The real world column is your first impression column. But you also have two first impressions. You got the online one and then the reality.
Well, not just online, but also email, because I can tell you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I get an email from XYZ company, and it doesn't say name at xyzcompany.com.
Mm-hmm.
I just pretty much discard the viability, because why would you not have your email?
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, a credit union I won't name
Mm-hmm.
sent me an email with something other than their name and
Mm-hmm.
the .com, and I walked down there and said, I think this is spam,
Mm-hmm.
and probably worse than that.
Yeah,
And,
phishing.
And the people that have the counter said, yeah, it looks like it to me. And so they called headquarters and said, no, did you request? No, I didn't request anything from these guys.
Yeah.
Well, so I had told them, I said, you know what? You better change that, because not only me, but my software, we have some really good anti-spam software,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't let it come through.
Right, exactly. So we'll get back to that in just a minute, but let's talk about real world first. So how do customers see you for the first time? And of course, your lobby or your reception area, I think investing a little bit of money in some interior design there is a really good return on investment. What do you think, John?
Well, based on what happened to the dentist, I'd say yes.
Absolutely. So, if people do see you for the first time, you want to make sure that, you want to storyboard this, and we're actually going to be talking about this in a later podcast. What happens from the time people pull into a parking space at your establishment? What does your parking area look like? What does your doorway look like? What does your reception area look like? What are the things that they're thinking and feeling while they're walking through these places, right?
You need to be selling from the first time they hit this idea they want to come see you.
Exactly. A receptionist can be incredibly important and can make or break the whole experience. Or office manager, or whatever you call that person that
Is the first person they see.
Exactly. This could happen at a trade show booth. So, once again, you want to kind of storyboard. Somebody sees you from across a crowded trade show floor. Do they get the right impression of your product or service? Do they know what you do from across the crowded room? Can they get an impression that you have invested a lot in what you do compared to the other booths in the area? Does yours look cheap? Does yours look appropriate for the venue? If it's MBAA and everybody else is in a 20 by 20, are you doing a 10 by 10? You want to look at what is everybody else doing, and do you look like you're part of the group that should be there, right? Clothes, we talked about that a little bit before. If your folks are in polo shirts and slacks, that's great, as long as they are nice polo shirts and slacks, and that's the kind of business that you're doing. That's great, right?
Yep.
You
need to be dressed so that when somebody says, well, you can come business casual, then you can dress down one notch and still be dressed right.
Yeah, exactly. Your car. I have had clients and or other people pick me up, from the airport in their car, and they've got, McDonald's bags and things, and it might be a really nice car, but it's just not a very good first impression if they have to clean off the seat for you, right?
Right.
Okay. Information package, that might be a real world thing that comes to you, making a first impression of a company. You request an information package, they send you something. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How is it packaged? Does it look like they pay attention to detail, or did they just throw some badly copied sheets in an envelope and send them to you?
Mm-hmm.
Those things make a difference. So that's real world stuff. Now let's talk about the online and phone stuff. And you already talked about email, but I want to add one thing to that, and that is, it seems to me in the aviation industry, there have been a few people working for what would otherwise be very credible companies, but then their email, when they send me an email or give me a business card, their email is at gmail.com.
Yep.
Maybe the company name at gmail.com. And they ask, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that it doesn't look like you have a domain, or it doesn't look like you've invested in the infrastructure to set up your company the right way, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Because it takes more thought, and it takes actually more technology to be able to do that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Not that much more, and it's not that much more expensive, but nonetheless, it needs to be done.
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of the card table in the lobby. It looks like you just set up yesterday if you don't have that done.
Our first day in business, we were something at aviationbusinessconsultant.com.
Right.
We never did go through the Gmail phase.
Right, and we actually ended up making a shortcut for that, abci1.com, because it's so dang long, aviationbusinessconsultants.com. But, still, it meets our branding and all of those other things. So, okay, so website, and especially your homepage, if that's the one that people visit the most, and you can look at Google Analytics and find out where do most people come into your website, and it's often your homepage or some landing page, but that's where you want to spend the time and money and make sure that looks good, right? Okay. Your search page, this is when somebody searches for, in our case, like aviation marketing. What does that look like on google.com or yahoo.com or bing.com or whatever? Does it have a description of our company, or does it say, welcome? It's amazing how many companies just have that as their search page. Welcome to aviationbusinessconsultants.com. This is the best real estate in the world for advertising your business, and it's free to make that 67 characters that you really, really like and that say, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to waste that on welcome, right? Welcome to Fantasy Island. It's not quite appropriate.
Unless you're running Fantasy Island.
Exactly. Audio quality. In our case, we do a podcast. So a lot of people, the first time they come in contact with us, it's because somebody shared a podcast with them. And they will say, I really liked your voices. You guys sound like somebody that I could do business with. Which is kind of scary because we're not radio people.
No,
There's a lot of folks that have better voices than we do.
But we go out of our way to have quality audio equipment. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, the microphone she's using, I believe, was made around 1948, 49 somewhere. Mm-hmm. But and I had it because of an amateur radio operator a long time ago, and somebody gave it to me. Mm-hmm. And I just rebuilt it, and there she goes. Yep,
it's the glamorous Frank Sinatra microphone. So, yeah, we've invested a little bit in that because a lot of people find us that way first. Your LinkedIn profile, maybe people are looking for what you do on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the first way they come in contact with you. So do you have a nice picture, a professional picture, especially, you in front of an airplane or you doing your thing. Mm-hmm. If you do public speaking, you standing at a podium, whatever it is that you do, that's a great first impression. It might be an email signature line, right? If you prospect by email, you want to make sure that your signature line has, the ways to get in touch with you. What drives me the most crazy, I think, is when there's no phone number in people's email signature line, right? If I have to go looking for your phone number, I'm going to find somebody else to do business with because I can tell you haven't put any thought into making it convenient for me, right?
Right.
Okay. A phone script or outline. So if you're doing prospecting by phone, you want to make sure that you sound really polished and professional, whether it's, a human being picking up the phone or whether it's an answering machine. And, you don't want to sound robotic and you want to adapt, to whatever the other person says, but you want to have something in mind and not be winging it every time, right?
Exactly.
You can see that a mile away. Okay. And then the last thing is your teleconference visible area, right? And what I mean by that is, what does your webcam see? Right? So a lot of us do business by GoToMeeting or by, dial me in, or whatever service you use for teleconferencing. And the webcam tells no lies, right? If somebody's doing business in their garage or whatever, it kind of looks like it. And if you've got kids running around in the background, or, kids, dogs, chimpanzees, whatever going on in your house, it doesn't give the same impression. If you're trying to sell a $1 million product, that's not the kind of impression that you want to give. If you're wearing a t-shirt and, your pajamas or whatever, that's fine, as long as you look good from whatever is visible from the camera, right?
It's a $1 million product. That doesn't matter if it's $5,000 product or up. It's still...
Yeah. You want to look like somebody that they want to do business with, and not dialing in a performance, of some kind.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. So those are things that you can and should invest in. And in some cases, it doesn't take any money. It just takes some thought and energy into, arranging the lighting in your room, or maybe hanging a backdrop or something like that, so that you've got a more professional appearance there.
We have gone to a lot of effort to do that for Miss Paula.
Yes, we have. And John's is just kind of natural, and you've got your messy whiteboard, but that's okay. It looks like we're busy, right?
At least I'm busy.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, if you see somebody with a clean office, they're not getting anything done. Okay, so the point is, you want to think about, what do prospects see first and what do they hear first? And you actually process a lot more information, and you go back to that book, Thinking Fast and Slow. You process a whole lot more information visually than you do auditorially, So if you have to prioritize, think about what do people see. But you also want to think about the other senses as well. And actually, one of the things that I really liked about the dentist office was how it smelled. It didn't smell like a horrible dentist office, right? You know how dentist office sometimes have that horrible disinfectant,
whatever.
The cheap, I don't even know the brand name of it, but it's awful. And it just makes your teeth hurt just walking in the door, because you associate that with a dentist office. This place had the little wax burners and things around the reception area so that it smelled nice. So, you want to think about the other senses, but, primarily if you have to prioritize, you think about visual first, right? Okay. So, once again, big ideas. The cliche is true, right? First impressions are incredibly important. And just to wrap up, this is a really high priority to invest resources, because it doesn't matter what kind of marketing you do. If the first impression that people get when they call your office or they walk in is a bad one, your advertising has just been wasted.
Well, and even after all your marketing, you made a sale, then whenever they obtain the product or service, you need to continue marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, you're never really done. But the first impression is, the most important time to establish that that relationship in a way that's going to give you some slack in case you screw up somewhere down the road, right? Not that that's ever going to happen, but it could, and we're all human, so those things happen. So put a little bit of energy into the front end. And, once again, visual elements are the most important to prioritize first, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. This episode has been brought to you by our Aviation Sales and Marketing Concierge Service. This is how we help our customers who are doing a lot more with a lot fewer people in the last few years, it seems. And a lot of the things like reports, budgets, plans, sales support, evaluations, copywriting, email, direct mail, trade show prep and follow-up, those kinds of things sometimes don't get done just because you don't have enough time or have enough people to make them happen. And without those little details, executing even the most creative and the most effective campaigns isn't going to work as well as you'd like it to, because those details are really important. So this is our way of helping you out by providing an extra pair of hands on some of those really critical tasks. Ask us about our Aviation Sales and Marketing Concierge Service, or go to abci1.com/concierge to find out more. Subscribe to our podcast, Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. And refer a friend. Let them know about this. The better people do with marketing in the aviation industry, really, I think the better for the industry, and the better for the industry, the better for all of us, because a thriving aviation industry is really
good thing.
feeds. Yeah, it really feeds off itself and each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and please do also leave us a review, because that's how other people find us. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See ya. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.